going for a suntan.
I could have blinded myself. Shadow. The Muppet Show.
They're all jolly and happy.
Can we have the Muppet theme?
No, can't have the Muppet theme, they'll get done for that.
Could have John on drum.
Hey, we're not late, you lot are late. We're tomorrow's people. Hello and welcome to the Flooring Models live show. Here we are with you live, maybe, alright, we'll give you that, maybe 2 minutes late, on the 12th of August. And a lovely sunny evening here. How's the weather with you guys?
Hot.
Hot.
Yeah, too warm again.
It is warm.
It is warm, I'll give it that. It's nice and sunny and warm. A lovely evening down in here. Hustru, hope you all trust, or even, that's what I'm trying to say, trust. I trust and hope. That's my new word now, Hurst. You're all doing very well at home. Everyone's doing nice. Everyone's having a nice evening as well. Be absolutely fantastic. Good evening to the gentlemen. Obviously, we've got Andy back again. Do you want to tell them all where you were on Wednesday? Or we're just going to talk that, you know.
What day is it today?
Thursday.
Wednesday I was at hospital in the morning,
Yes,
came home, and hospital all afternoon.
that's it. And apparently they can't reverse the operation once they do it once, so...
Permanent.
It's permanent, they've told him, so he's having second thoughts. Anyway, no. Anyway, hopefully we'll get a bit more to the bottom of it with Andy's long COVID. So if you want to follow along with that saga, Jesus.
We'll open a Just Giving page.
Yes, that's it. We're going to need one soon. He's going to need a mobility scooter. We're thinking a car. You'll have to have the house adapted and everything.
Stanner stair lift.
Hoists running through all the rooms so we can get him from one room to the other. We just wheel him in. So anyway, we're trying to do it.
The worst thing is, you joke about it.
I know, that's the thing. They'll think we're joking. Anyway, all good. John, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
How's life with Royal Mail? You back at work now?
Yeah, this Monday I went back, unfortunately.
Nice.
But never mind.
Oh, how you lot have fun and laugh whilst rumbling round the streets of Somerset, round the lanes. No, all right, okay, forget that.
Just trying to get out of Taunton at the moment is a nightmare.
Oh, is the weather a bit, the roads a bit up the creek?
Oh, roadworks everywhere.
Well, at least they're doing it in the middle of summer. Don't want them getting cold.
Yeah, true.
Very good. And Matt, how are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Talking of roadworks, Andy will know this. Anybody who lives around Chesterfield Way will know of a place called Blackwell,
Oh God, yeah.
which is on a bloody great hill going towards Mansfield and coming back to the M1. And it must get dug up. It's one way in and one way out. It must get dug up once every 2 months.
Yeah. And it's my main route to get to the motorway.
And a lot of other people's as well who live around there. And yeah.
I must admit, we had a road like that down in here, and it was that thing. It seemed to be the gas board were doing it one week, and they did their bit. Then they put in a new water pipe, and then they dug it up for doing the sewers or something about a year later. And everyone was like, Jesus, can you seriously not all just get on the same page? But apparently they're not allowed to. So.
It's honestly every other month somebody's digging it up. Ridiculous.
Our council had 18 months of lockdown with hardly any traffic on the road to sort it all, and they decided to start everything as soon as we came out of lockdown.
Well, this is it. It's the way to do it, isn't it?
That's the same with the Tamar Bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, Tamar Bridge is exactly the same as that. They've waited until everyone's in Cornwall on holiday this year to dig it all up and have one road in and one road out. Brilliant. Seamless. Anyway, that's enough of our road problems. As I say, usual format for tonight, we're going to carry on from where we were last week, because obviously Matt's here. He was travelling down, obviously, to John last week. And obviously some of you guys have put up some questions as well. So we're going to carry on the one about weathering, because it was such a large topic. And I've got a few ideas to put spins on it as well, and things like that. So yeah, that's really where we are. So what we'll do is we'll have a chat, for informal chat, for around about sort of 3/4 of an hour, something else like that. Obviously you guys can join it at home. Please give us your feedback, and then obviously we'll go on to doing your questions and things like that, which we've got up there, and hopefully we'll answer a few of those. So my point to this is, and it's something me and Matt were talking about, was it yesterday, I think?
Today.
When does it become, you know, technically you've built your model and you've painted it, so that bit technically is what I would call, you know, building and, you know, model making. But from my point of view, the bit where you're going into the weathering, now that is more art. Because we often, I know technically modelling is art, because technically the definition in the dictionary says it's something that has no practical purpose, so it's known as an art form. So that's what art is and everything else like that. So my point to this one was, or you know, my opinion is that modelling is technically doing things like this, scale modelling, because you're putting it together and doing all the things to it, and a basic sort of paint job onto it. That definitely comes under what I think of the sort of group of model making. You know, the bit where you start going on to weathering, modulations, filters, you know, chipping and stuff like that, does that then cease becoming scale modelling and starts becoming an art form?
Right, I have a theory on this.
Go.
As I was thinking about this afternoon. Okay, so say if we all had the same kit.
Yes.
Okay, we all built the same kit. We would all pretty much build it the same way.
Yes.
I would say, without painting it, no paint, nothing. So you're building it straight out the box.
Yeah.
To me, that's not your piece. I think it becomes your piece when you start painting and weathering. If that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because that's when you bring to life your vision of that kit or object or whatever it is you're building.
Yes.
I think when it's in the raw plastic, it could be anybody's kit. Anybody could have built it, you know, and you can't define one from another, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, they're pretty much the same standard.
Especially if you were just to that point where they're all in primer.
Yeah, whatever, yeah. And to me, you know, like thinking about it, what we were discussing earlier, it is when you start painting it and weathering it and doing your own style, individual style of how you do it, that's when it becomes your own piece to me.
True. So that actually does go along with what I was thinking as well, is because if you imagine, you know, here we are, literally I've just finished off my truck now and all the rest of it, and it is that thing. We all have our certain styles of weathering and how we go about it and how we do it, isn't it? So is this a bit like the great artist? Like, who's the guy who did the Stickmen pictures? He was a northern folk, wasn't he?
Lowry, yeah.
Lowry.
So you would spot his work easy, innit? Like a Van Gogh, you can spot their work because they have a particular style of how they do it and, you know, how they would go about it as well. So, like we've spoken about, haven't we? There's certain modelers out there who we can spot their work a mile off purely by its weathering, because we know their style of weathering and how they would go about it. So is this the bit then where we're saying there's definitely a line then? So you could do all your construction work, as we were saying. And again, we've done it, all of us as a group, haven't we? Where we've all built Phantoms, we've done MiGs and Sequoias and all stuff like that. And even like me and Matt have done the H-Fan. The bit where you've put it into, say, just grey primer, you wouldn't be able to tell whose build was who. Because we've all, you know, there might be the odd difference between them, rough slightly, but from a layman to walk in a room, I bet if we put them out on a table with 4 people and we've built them, I don't think anybody would be able to tell who's built what.
It's the Pepsi Coke challenge.
It is, isn't it? And that's the point. So from a scale modelling point of view, if you've got all your basics down, so you know, you've done your seams are all good and all the bits and pieces, and you've popped back any details you might have, had to sand out because of joins and stuff like that. Generally, I would defy anybody to pick out whose model's who, because
we should try it.
That's it. We'll have to try it one day. We'll do it. One day we'll do a show with you guys, and we'll do it for Telford or something. We'll build 4 and put them into primer, and you have to guess who it is.
Yeah, and you can win a prize.
You vote. We'll have a little bit of paper. We'll do this, right? We'll put a bit of paper and you scribble down, fold it in half, put it in a box, and we'll see if everyone can work out who's done what. But that thing is, though, is that I can guarantee as soon as we go into paint and then especially into weathering, you would probably know whose is whose. because I have a style. Everyone knows my style of weathering because you guys follow it all the time. So I'll probably be easier to spot than maybe the other guys would be. But I know Matt has a certain technique regime. I know Andy does as well, and John does. You know, Nathan doesn't do a ton of weathering because he tends to do the smaller stuff anyway, which I don't think needs it quite as much. But again, it will be one of those. I think it'll be easier to spot our styles, as we were saying, and also not just saying our style of weathering. It's that our interpretation of something as well. So obviously, like with this one, I've used various oils at the moment, neat and thinned on here to sort of break it up. So I've used greens on the grey, yellows on the greens. We've used a little bit of grey, a little bit of earthy colours around on this one to really just sort of bed it all in. You know, and then we'll go more of it once the gun's done on top of it again, and then the washes will come in a little bit more and stuff like that. But I think pretty much anybody would spot mine a mile away, you know. So that is the thing then. Are we talking about scale modelling, technically, from a construction point of view, up to primer, is a universal thing that you wouldn't technically be able to spot anybody's difference. In theory, if they followed the instructions and they've gone along with it, forget scratch building and all the bits and pieces, we are all on the same page. But literally, it suddenly becomes an art form as soon as the paint goes on. Because obviously people use different their hues of paint. They might start it lighter and darker than using the normal colour, and you know, straight off the bat, where other people like to do it afterwards.
So do you think then, the build part of it is the craft part of it?
Yeah.
And then the painting and the weathering and the rest of it is the art part of it?
Yes.
So what we discussed earlier, we're going to discuss in a different show on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Kind of weighs up then, isn't it, what we were saying?
It does, yeah, I think it does. You know, and I think that's why I was thinking about it, because I thought about that as well. And when you as soon as you step into paint, you know, originally when I was talking to you earlier, we were talking about, I thought it was more when you're into weathering. But even with the paint, because I like to lighten my paint a little bit, because I know I'm going to go in with a wash, the wash will darken it. So I allow for that right off the bat. You know, and various things into it. So again, I think that's where it changes. I think it's a construction point of view, right the way up until primer. As soon as the paint goes on, it becomes an art form. You know.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm taking nothing away from construction, because that's
it. That's a full thing, like we were saying. That's a full section on its own, isn't it?
Important part of the hobby.
Hmm.
But obviously we're on about painting and weathering and all that, which is a different part, and there's a massive separation, and there's a massive different skill set as well.
Absolutely.
Which again we'll discuss.
Yes.
Do you know if you copied a photo down to the T, would that still be artistic?
I don't think you could. I don't think you'd be able to do it. I know. I'm looking obviously at your little tractor, which you've got the book, and you did it.
Yeah, I mean a real life photo. See, like Jamie did the Wessex. He's basically copied a real life Wessex, sat in and he did it on did he do it on a MI8 as well, I think?
Yeah, he's done an
abandoned. I remember he's done a few anti-ways, actually done. He's shown the photos and the things. Is that still art?
Technically, I suppose, yeah.
Because then, if it is, then if you're doing a portrait,
I would call it art, because you've got to try and recreate that. That's a bit like saying somebody who's a forger having to copy a Van Gogh. Yeah. He's still an artist because he's good enough to be able to copy it exactly as the original was done.
And I suppose if somebody's doing a portrait,
what's the difference either?
They're doing it.
The thing is, it's different people's interpretation of what they see.
Yeah, of course.
And that's the individuality with art, isn't it? Because again, we could take the modelling out of the thing. If we were good at painting or drawing or whatever, and we all went right, let's draw the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
All four of us here would draw something different, but you can still tell it's the Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
And I think that's why art.
You might struggle with mine. Mine might look like a pylon.
No, but I was just saying if you was competent at drawing or competent at painting or sculpting or whatever it is on the artistic side of it, we could probably all, like we've said, we could all build the same kit, get in primer, and it would pretty much all look the same until we paint it, and then you could go.
Yes.
Yeah. That's where individuality comes in, isn't it? So this is why, again, to me, model shows are, when you're doing the competitions, which is going down a rabbit hole here, but again, whoever's judging, it's their individual taste of what they're seeing.
Of course it is, yes.
It's not, however much you try to be impartial, you're still going to be drawn to what attracts you to what's on the table.
Yes. Yeah.
So then it's kind of unfair because somebody's interpretation of what they like is not the next judge or the next judge or whatever. And it's, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to judge, but that's what I think. And I think that with, like, you know, you see portrait artists of the year and landscape artists of the year and pottery making and all them other crafty things that's been on the TV. Again, the people who are judging, they've got their own flavour and taste that they like. So it's got to be nigh on impossible to be impartial to, because if you don't like something, you don't like it, do you? You can't make yourself
No, you can't. That's
like
right.
something that's not, you know,
To your taste. Absolutely.
yeah.
No, I
if
totally
it's proper
get it.
abstract art, and that's, you know, like a Picasso or something, and you're not into that sort of thing, you're into more the classics. Yeah, I don't know. I can't see how it works, but you know, it's obviously a different conversation again. I suppose it's often a bit
kits. Andy's would be easy to spot because his would be unfinished.
True. Okay, so I know loads of you have been jumping up and down in there and all the rest of it. This is including scratch building, adding extras, putting your own details into it. This is straightforward, opening a kit, and we all built the same kit. And you know, you've seen us do it many a time. We've done it with Sea Furies, we did it with the Buccaneers, we did it with the Phantoms, where we all built the same thing.
Which I finished.
Yeah.
Ah, look, you've upset.
Yeah, you've upset him now. But yeah, so that is the thing. And to be honest with you, like when we did the flankers, we all went for slightly different camos anyway because we wanted to break them up because we didn't want to all do the same. But all of them had different weathering styles onto them, you know. So that was quite easy to spot who did who as well because obviously Nathan did a splinter, me and Andy did 33s, and Matt did a 27. So, you know, it was quite easy to spot the different ones from them all. But even me and Matt's were different.
But I will say again, if again we all had the same kit, we'd all built it, blah blah blah, and we all had the same paints and weathering products, would still come back with 4 different interpretations of the kit.
See, again, Dirk's jumping up and down on here. Again, you're talking about scratch building. We're not talking about scratch building. Scratch building is completely something different. Are you talking about scratch building a couple of details and adding it to a model? Are you talking about scratch building something, which means you're just starting off with nothing and going through? That's totally different genre. Because again, if you're scratch building from nothing, like very famously, that's that master Japanese modeler who makes 1/24 scale stuff that are fully workable out of sheet metal. That's scratch building. When you're adding a couple of bits of photo etch and a couple of boxes and stuff like that, that's not scratch building. That's just adding details. If you're scratch building, that's like when people do it from plans and they're making stuff out of literally nothing. That's scratch building. That is 100% an art form. Because again, you know, you're taking something that is just doesn't exist and having to build it. But what I'm saying is that if you're doing something like a kit, and that's what we're talking about in this particular one, of like, you know, if we've all built this truck together and we all put it into primer, theoretically, they should all turn out exactly the same. If you are a competent modeler with basic modelling skills, especially on something like this, which has got no problems at all, you should end with it exactly the same. You know, obviously if you're learning the art form and obviously you're still struggling with, you know, some seam lines and obviously things like that, then you might spot someone because again, they might have some dodgy alignment issues and they might have some various things on here. But if you've, you know, you worked your way through the basics of it, they should come along roughly the same. It's not the same as saying if you'd taken a really bad kit, I don't know, like the Bear Bomber. Because the engine cells don't fit, so you've got to do a bit of work in there. So it might be plasticard, it might be filler, just to smooth those out. And again, that's a little bit more than just a smidge of filler and just sand it and you're good to go. It needs a little bit of fettling to get it in there. And it takes, I would say, sort of more advanced, you know, skills, especially if you're not, you know, happy doing filler work and stuff like that, to polish it out, to get them to blend seamlessly. And again, adding back the detail you may have lost. So if your riveting is not very good, perhaps, or if you're, certainly scribing, which is, again, a nightmare of mine for years, but as riveting is, I'm still not 100% happy doing panel line rescribing, because again, it's one of those things. If you go too deep, it looks too bad. If you're not doing it enough, you might jump out the line. We've all got those little things to it. Again, that's something that comes along a little bit further. But if you take a shake and bake type kit, they should all be the same. And then afterwards, though, all your weathering skills goes in there and makes it your own. That's what I'm basically saying. So, again, as I say, there's so many, and that's the nice thing about this hobby as well. There's so many different parts of it. So if you are, a modeler who's got a little bit more money, shall we say, he can go out and buy Tamiya kits, he or she should say, can go out and buy Tamiya kits, and they are going to give you pretty much a flawless build. But you could still screw up in the painting and weathering section of it and make an awful model out of it. And again, that's something where you're learning all those separate skills. Or you might get somebody who builds classic Airfix kits from the 60s and 70s, and that's what they really enjoy doing, because you are going to have really good set of basic skills, advanced skills as well, to sort out, correct, adding detail back in, because you're going to sand most of it away with trying to get the halves together and everything else like that. So again, I think it's one of those things that each area of the model has its own skill set. And again, there's very few people who do all the skill set. I maintain it. And I've got, so it's a friend of mine, and he builds the really expensive kits that go together very nicely, because he really can't be bothered with sanding and filling and rescribing and re-riveting. So he will, if it's commission work, he will do the expensive ones. He won't give you an option. If you turn around and said, I wanted an F14 Tomcat, he will make you have a Tamiya one, because he doesn't want to hang around building a Hobby Boss one and have to update it and to put it all right and all the bits and pieces. So, that's how some people are. But some people like the challenge of older kits, as we know. There's a big following of classic kits, isn't it, that people like to build and put together.
Yep. So we'll get back onto weathering now.
Yes. So I'm just simply saying how it's different areas of it. We will cover the other ones in different shows as well. But yes,
we've discussed this. We were on about it today. Me and Phil were on about it when we had a chat, and it's definitely another Thursday theme of the skill set needed, shall we say, and different skill set. To me, how you're on about the Japanese guy who builds from nothing. That's engineering. I don't think that's art. That's engineering.
No, because he doesn't paint them. He leaves them as metal finishes. They're just metal, pure metal.
I mean, they are a piece of art when he's done.
Oh, yeah.
But it's engineering skills to get it from that paper to a 3D item.
Working item. Yeah.
So, and very skilled it is as well. It's unbelievable. It's mind-blowing what they can do.
Yes.
So anyway.
Go on, back onto weathering.
Back onto weathering, Andy.
Back onto weathering. So, we were talking last time about inspiration, or what we use for inspiration. Yeah, and books. For example, this one's by some guy called Ronaldo.
A footballer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I built this one a while ago, and I wanted to do the kit to go with it. And I basically followed his way through it. But even so, I still put my own little individual bits into it. Do you know what I mean? It's not a one-to-one example of the book, but the book does walk you through, and it does give you good ideas on. It tells you the ideas on how to weather it, and fantastic way he goes through it all and everything. And I came up out with what I think was a really pleasing little tractor thing.
Yes.
Is it trumpeter, isn't it, Matt, this one?
It's a trumpeter one, yeah.
Trumpeter one, yeah.
But again, that book you've got there, to me, again, if you're beginning on your weathering path, there's plenty of now YouTube people who are doing it and everything else that's quite nice to follow.
Yeah.
But again, it's very quite straightforward, so you can just get a feel of what you like to do, what you don't like. I like high contrast, to be honest. That's what I've discovered from my journey into painting and weathering, is I like contrast. Because
that we said, we all pick up our own individual things, don't you? So, like, like Phil was saying before, you can tell different, each individual's thing. It's because you pick up, once you've done it over the years, you pick up your own sort of things, don't you? So what you want to do. But then it's also nice to learn new things. I mean, I like using the weathering magazines. And so they're basically, these take you through individual sort of like things. This one's just on interiors. Very useful to use as a reference. Maybe not like 100%, but use as a reference. But then you can go on to full books by. I said I've not heard of this chap either. To be honest with you, I don't know who he is, but this is all about weathering as well. It's like useful to look through, but again, it's sort of like you use them for reference to pick up your own individual techniques out of, and use in conjunction with Phil's tutorials. When he's doing video builds, then so like every single one of your video builds, there's something to pick up out of, isn't there? So like to pick new techniques out of and to learn something new from.
Well, I must admit,
There's a reason why you do them, isn't it?
With every video build I don't do a standard what you would think. So, as a manufacturer of washes, you think I would just use a wash. And to be honest, I could do. And I can make the wash do pretty much everything that any other product can do, without doubt. Right the way through. I can use it like an oil, I can use it literally like a wash, we can use it neat, so forth and so on. You can even let it dry out and use it as pigment. So, and that's it. But what I've always said is that I like to show different ways of doing the same thing with different products. So everybody, as you say, you can have a play with it to see what works for you. So again, sometimes I might use like a classic example on here. This hasn't got any wash on it whatsoever yet. I haven't gone near it with the wash. It will do later on. But normally it'd be wash first, then it's oils, and then obviously you're in with pigments, so forth and so on, right the way through. But again, because I wanted to show this slightly different, to be honest, the last thing that's going to go on will be the wash, which will technically act like a pigment and go onto it as well. Because again, it's a nice way of showing different ways to skin a cat. Because let's face it, the trouble we've got with all the weathering products is there's a lot of overlap between them all.
I mean, there was a time, was it not last year, the year before, where I think you went pretty much a whole year without using your wash, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Purposefully, so that to show all the techniques and use other products.
Yeah. And again, like we were saying, the great thing about this hobby, and it is what we were talking about earlier, it's different ways of doing it because people like to use different mediums. So you get people who love to use oils and like to use them neat and do various effects with it. Yet other people always use them traditionally as a wash or a thinned for going in for doing oils and various things onto it and causing modulations and all those types of things. And again, that's the thing to it though. There's so many different variables to achieve a certain look. There's no right or wrong to it. It's just your way of doing it and to get the effects you like. So like we said before, it's like pre-shading. Some people absolutely loathe and hate it. It's like black basing. Some people loathe and absolutely hate it. But it's a different ways of doing exactly the same thing. Because those people who don't do pre-shading probably come along and do forms of post-shading. That may be with an airbrush, or it may be with oils, it may be with washes or filters, or whichever way it is. But they're doing the same effect to get that type of shadowing back into it. But it's different ways of doing the same thing, which always makes me laugh because people turn around and say, oh, I can't stand that technique. But the end result is the same. So you can't, you're going for that same type of look for fading and mottling paintwork and all the rest of it, where you could do it with black basing and gives you a really good, strong foundation for going on with it. So, so there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it depends which way you physically want to do it. Do you want to do it before or after? Again, that's the nice thing with this, isn't it?
I'll admit, I generally do black base, but it's purely because I find it's the easiest way for me to have the most control over the finish I'm aiming for. If that makes sense. I just find it the easiest method to get to that result. But like you say, there's different ways you can go at it, and I've tried them all. But the black basing, I just find I have the most sort of control over.
Yeah.
And mean it's right or wrong for anyone else.
Well, that's what I was about to just say. Don't let anybody say you're doing it wrong, because there's no such thing of doing it the wrong way. You can do everything in the complete opposite order that kind of the establishment, shall we say,
Yes.
but get to an end result that you're happy with, because that's all that matters, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
of course it is.
right, I don't know if you covered this last week or not, because obviously I weren't here, but what got you all into weathering? Because I know when we were all kids, that was the last thing that we were going to be doing when we were building the kit, is to think about any sort of weathering. Let's be honest, it was get it together as quick as possible, painted, deckled, and smashed up by tea time.
Yes.
So, what got you inspired then?
Again, I think I saw it in a book, because it would have been a book back those days at the library, and I would have seen it. I don't know whose it would have been. I can't remember that far back, but I remember seeing it in there, and it was a little trick they were doing with mechanical pencil to do panel lines.
Right. Okay.
And that was the first time I had ever used anything after it had been deckled. Normally, it got deckled and had a flat coat all over it out of a rattle can. That was all it ever got, you know. And I remember seeing in a book, and it was a guy, and he had a mechanical pencil and literally was going round this kit with them. And it would have been an old Matchbox one with quite wide panel lines. And he went around with them, and then he literally just buffed it, you know, around. And that was it. I remember then I didn't have a mechanical pencil, sharpening up an HP pencil and sort of going in with it and doing the bits and then puffing it. And to be honest, it turned into almost a metal finish because I'd overdone it. I can't even remember what the aircraft was now, something else like that. But that was the first time I'd ever tried weathering, barring just it getting a flat coat out of the end out of a rattle can, which normally would have flooded it and been dripping in it. So I used to hang it on a coat hanger and spray it. So that's my first attempt at it solely.
Right.
And then past that, to be honest, my other weathering, how I literally got into it was I used to post shade with an airbrush with, back in the day, it would have been X19 smoke, Tamiya smoke, thinned. And I used to just literally go around and do the panel lines absolutely everywhere. And that's literally all it got. That was my next step up. And that's long before the washover came along.
Would you say it's definitely, though, started in the 90s?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, never
John?
done anything before that. Late 90s it would have been around about 97
Yeah.
as well.
From getting back into the hobby seriously, it's definitely come from the armour side of the hobby.
Well, just while you're there, because I've been thinking about this, that's why I asked the question. It's like, well, what got me interested in weathering and blah de blah, you know what I mean? And I can probably say,
Oh, the old Belinda ones, yeah. I didn't see those until later on in life. I was behind the curve on them.
yeah, well, I discovered this one by accident, and I've been trying to wrap my brains on where I picked it up.
Yeah.
But honestly, when I picked this up, it kind of blew my mind when I started reading it. And obviously, the techniques in this now are out of date, shall we say, to be polite. There's dry brushing and probably he definitely use oils. I know he use oils, but there you go. Because I mean, he's using the old like Italeri kits, and but also that's kind of got me interested, like I said before, in the little big vignettes dioramas of what can be done instead of just building a tank. Obviously, at the front there's like
that's what we said last week, that one of the first things was probably dry brushing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first thing I tried, dry brushing, I think, on weathering and stuff. But I mean, you know, these are old kits, but they're still pretty cool things. And then to really got me interested, I would say, and then what thing it is, that book, the original FAQ by Mig.
That's not that old though, is it?
It's not that new either. That's not as old, you know, it's not as new as you think it is.
Because I mean, my modelling started when I was a child up until probably 14. Then I stopped, and then I started again probably in my mid-20s. When I was in my mid-20s through to my early 30s is when I probably started weathering. Mine was through a friend of mine who used to do a lot of wargaming. So he was building miniatures for wargaming, and that's when I started doing 70-second stuff and adding extras to them like stowage and what have you, and weathering them up. But that was like sort of, so when I was in my mid to late 20s. I was definitely weathering then. But like I said, it was all armour. All I built was armour. And I progressed from doing 70-second stuff onto 135th stuff, and I carried on the weathering across from there. Doing chipping, using hairspray and oils for doing streaking and things, and it's like blending. And I've still got kits now that I did it all on. Probably more so now then than I do now, to be fair.
Well, look, I can just show you something here, right? This is like back in time. So this is the first promotional video I did for the company when I sort of went pro. So you can see on here, they didn't have any weathering whatsoever. And to be honest, I did a bucket load of those. I must have made over 50 of those and sold them. Okay, misdemeanor, don't worry about that, it was a private one. But normal stuff like this, no weathering whatsoever, unweathered. Obviously special ones as well, that's that Revell horrible one done in there. Again, battleships, no weathering whatsoever onto that one. Armour was actually one of the few ones where I used to do weathering for it as part of the sort of commission side of it and going through. And again, cockpits, things like these are the old Esky ones. I used to do a load of them back in the day. They were never weathered as well, never happened. There's the Vulcan, my God.
God.
So again, no weathering on that, clearly, because that one, I don't think it was a rescribed one. I did a couple of them for a commission. None of them were done either. But other ones in here, this was the extent of what it used to be. This isn't the actual Flory Models wash. This is an oil wash on this because it predates the actual Flory Models wash. That's all it had. It didn't have anything else on the gear and the other bits and pieces. But then other things, if we just find something down in here, there we go, that's another one. Just a wash, that's it. It's got a tiny little bit of post shading down onto it because again, I didn't do fading. This one would be a good one to actually weather in, being a desert aircraft. They do weather in all the bits and pieces, but it certainly didn't. What else we got? These ones used to get the standard bit of post shading over to it. But again, none of these days had any oils. I wasn't into oils. So what this literally would have had is smoke made into a very, very thin wash and just chucked over the gear and around it. And this was post shaded with smoke right the way over this. And again, this is pre-wash. So there's no actually wash in the panel lines. It would have just been rubbed around a little bit on here with the smoke to sort of give it that type of effect. And then obviously this is in the days of doing the commission. So it was somewhere in here when I was starting to play with the wash. But again, no weathering. It was just a simple smoke Tamiya 50-50 mix with a bit of thinners and then bang around the gear. And then it would have been a wash down onto it. And the same went with pretty much everything. Again, nothing down there on the Phantom. It would have been clean. And then the ones here, this is what I was talking about. This is just a standard post shade with smoke literally just running around all over it, trying to keep it as random and light. And in those days that was a god awful Aztec airbrush as well, right the way through. But when you get down to the armor side, wherever that is, this was literally this is just acrylic in water, submerge it into its level here and then let it drip off and then dry brush it just to go round and do it all literally like that. So they didn't have anything else. And again, this little guy just down in here, he's the same thing, sat into a bowl of water, let it naturally sit, take it out, let it dry brush right over it. So it's not a complicated weathering sets at all with it. But that's what I'm trying to get at, is that in those days they were very simple. They were literally one-step processes. There was nothing, over the top. Nowadays, I wouldn't dream of post shading without coming in with a little bit of oils and obviously with a wash right over it and putting all these little bits in there. But again, are you sort of over titivating it for the sake of it in some ways, or are you just trying to add more and more depth into it?
No, because it's layering, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the artist side of it. When people portrait paint, like we're saying, or landscape, it's layering to add depth, to add contrast, to add interest. And I think that's it's more accessible now because of the products
Yes.
that have become available from AK, MIG, Vallejo, Wilder, you name it, yeah?
Yeah.
But it kind of, again, was good back, it all started probably more commercially with MIG Productions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 2000s, would it? Early 2000s?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously it's progressed from there. You know, obviously you invented jaw wash. So then obviously the internet came along more readily available. People could watch videos, they joined in your forum, and things came a lot more accessible than just being in a model club. And if you were lucky, there was probably somebody who was good in there.
Yeah.
Or in a TV, I can't even say the word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
so
what you
you
mean, yeah.
could get tips from them. I was never in a model club, to be honest. When I was, don't think I've ever been.
Nor
in
was
a model
I. Yeah, that was the thing. I never
Apart from
was
the
either.
Doncaster lads, I've never. That's the only one I've ever been in. I've never in like the Nottinghamshire PMS or anything like that. I weren't really that interested to a point. I just did it for my own enjoyment. But I think that was probably that, and obviously the magazines. Go on, John. Sorry.
Something that I have noticed from when we like doing like the real like Telford, the real big show and that, for how weathering orientated the hobby is at the moment, you look like around the general stands, and I'm thinking probably more aircraft here than armour. It's surprising how many of them aren't really weathered that much.
No.
Again, it's all down to personal taste, isn't it?
And personal like capabilities as well. If people have got the confidence to try it or not, because you get so far, you get it into paint, and then you know to start weathering it.
It's the one thing at Telford that always strikes me is that we're so massive. There's so much stuff to do with weathering on the internet, in books, magazines. Yet, like I say, there's an awful lot that just aren't.
I think, from a personal point of view, if it wasn't for the weathering side of it, I'd have lost interest in this hobby.
Yeah.
I can safely say that, I reckon, now, thinking back. Because that's what's drew me in, obviously, like I say, with what I've just shown you with them books and the other books and magazines and drawing the forum and the internet as well, who I follow on YouTube and stuff like that. It's all that led for me to be interested.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, just showing the thing. So if you look at this one, so when I did the Bradley, you know, and in here there's a lot going on because like each one of these panels hasn't been separately painted. That's a different oil paint. So it's a little bit of oil in there, smudged around into it and done through. Then we've come along with a little bit of neat oils to do the rundown marks and everything else right the way through here. So it had a lot of neat oils on this one to sort of make this design up and go through the motions of it right the way in there. So again, this was all about sort of weathering and going through with oils really at the end of the day. And then in stark contrast, you've got, where have I done with it? There it is. You've got the Terminator. That's only got on it dark dirt wash. There's nothing else on that whatsoever. And again, different ways of doing it. We were talking about how different techniques for doing different things. And again, you've still got all the various bits on the sides and the bits coming down and the streak marks, but this is done with the wash. So this is the cold water wash system onto this one. And it works really, really well, very, very straightforward. And again, it's just that thing about, you know, when you're looking at different models, even for me, and I look back at them and say, right, okay, so how did we do that one? There's so many different ways out of there, different ways of doing it to get quite a similar effect to it, you know, without having to go down the route of repainting, because again, the paintwork's done. You're adding all those different colors and all those different effects through purely weathering. So, you know, especially, you know, as you say, if you're looking at the Bradley, which is always quite a good one, you know, you see this one. And it is that thing because, you know, obviously it's got chipping and bits we've done down in here on the mud stuff, but all the different blocks and panels in here, it was a case of, right, well, we're just going to do this colour's going to go in here. We just smudged it around and we did the same thing. We let them dry and go off as down in the skirts and all the areas to break it up from being a grey brick. A sandy colour brick all on here into one to break it up. So it was a good one to sort of practice your dry brushing techniques just as much as you were doing with oils to get sort of streaking effects with oils, which I still think is a great way of doing it in there. And even down from the actual, you know, the armour on this one with the plates and the animal, the panels and all the rest of it, you know, is really, really interesting how you can make technically a one colour sand, because that's all it was, into that really broken down, and looks very, very complicated, but actually it's quite straightforward. It's just a couple of different coloured oils being banged on there, and away you go, you know. And that's the nice thing, I think, of weathering and what that enables you to do, because if somebody else came along doing that, it will never be the same. Even if you probably use the same oil colours, because my brush might be slightly dirty and might have something else on it. So you'll get different variation, different hues, different saturations and stuff like that. And I think that's also what is really, really nice about weathering, is that differences of it. Because I guarantee I couldn't even do that again if I tried. If somebody said, I want that exact one, you know, there's no way I could recreate it. I'll give it a go and it'd have the similar colours and obviously the bits and pieces, because it would be, I'd use the same things again. But to get it spot on, to look identical, is very, very difficult, even if in modelling form, because that's what we're talking about, you know, if you take a photo of the real thing or a photo of another model and try and recreate it, that's a real art form to be able to do that. You know, like how many models could you want to see? Like your tractor there, Andy, you reckon you could do it again exactly the same if you tried?
No way.
The thing is, though, right, that's because when you're building said kit you're doing, you're in the zone of you building that kit.
Yeah.
And half the stuff that I do, I kind of don't remember how I've done it like you. It's it's organic for me. I just do it and I just pick washes off the thing or my oils or whatever I'm using. And I kind of make it work some way or another. But I couldn't replicate it for... If my life depended on it, I couldn't replicate whatever I've built before. I would not have a clue. I don't think I could do it like even you recording it. If you had to watch yourself back doing it, you still wouldn't be able to do it.
No.
Which is good, because
that's
why
what
would
I'm
you
saying.
want to?
Yeah.
You've already done it.
Absolutely. But that's what I'm trying to get at here then. So what we're saying is, it is art. Because again, you know, we're saying about, okay, there's products out there, there's the same way of doing the same thing. You can do it with oils, you do it with washes, you do it with paints, you can post shade, you can, you know, pre-shade, you can do all these different things about it. But actually it's you, it's your creativity. Like, I think you've just hit the nail on the head there when you say about you couldn't do it again because you can't remember how you did it. Because again, it's that real, and I think that's what art is, isn't it? If you were painting a picture, you're mixing up paint on a palette, you know. But you probably are not saying to yourself, oh, that's got 27.6% of that colour, it's got 27.8 in there. You're not, you're just doing it. It's a bit like, you know, you're figure painting, doing skin tones. There's no magical formula to it, you know, because again, it's that feel what's right for you, you know, as you're doing it and putting it down. And that's the same, I think, with anything. It doesn't matter if you're doing a green truck or, a World War I plane, you know, it is that thing.
But going back to it, this is to the guys who are perhaps a bit sort of apprehensive about doing it, or worried that you're going to mess it all up. Everything's reversible.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, if you mess it up, you can strip it. If you have to, you can rub it back. You can repaint it. Nothing is permanent.
Yeah.
But also, go on.
Stuart's made a good point in this. Do you think it makes people feel that they've underachieved if they do not weather low? It feels like you have to wash. No, good one.
No, because it's your own model kit.
Absolutely.
You do what you're comfortable with. Nobody's making you weather a model. You know, we're just on about it this week and last week as in weathering techniques and why it's become fashionable or whatever. But no, if you want to do a completely clean, just give it a wash or whatever.
And like we've said, isn't it? The great thing about, obviously, with the hobby, you can do as much as you're little, but also the reality is, normally things aren't as weathered as perhaps modelers make them anyway.
No, it's exaggerated.
Again, if you go off and look at a tank, you know, let's face it, we've all been round armour, we've all been round helicopters and everything else like that. You don't really see them totally kicked in, unless you are in some backwater dump, you know, where they really, it's definitely, you know, it's basically not form over factor. It's, you know, you don't care if it's kicked in and that, it is that thing. But normally, if they're kept relatively clean and everything else. Just put this into context. Got a friend of mine who was used to be an Abrams commander, and to be honest, did a couple of commissions for him. And one of the ones which was absolutely fantastic was that one of his lads was a modeler as well, and he did a fantastic dia, and unfortunately I haven't got the photos anymore, but he did a diorama of a 35th scale Abrams being pressure washed. So he used my wash on it, because he put the wash all over it, spritz bottled it, let it dry, and then he washed it off with the bit of warm water and an airbrush. Then he's got a guy with a hose with a bit of something out the end to make it look like it's pressure washing down. And the caption at the bottom is, "Cheers, boss, you're an asshole." Because as the commander, he would make them clean the tank every time it came back. So, so there's no big dirty tanks. They're not left there just covered in crap. They used to get washed off every time they came back in, off of exercise and all the rest of it, cleaned out inside and out, but people don't like that. They like the muddy ones, isn't it? The reality is different to,
It's like when you see all the World War II stuff and it's proper beat and rusted, and in reality,
it won't last that long.
An M4 Sherman landed on the beaches in June, July, whenever it was, and went through to May the following year.
Yeah.
So they were like 10, 11 months. The oldest ones were 10, 11 months old. And that's if they're the ones that
made it that far.
That probably survived, made it that far in the first place.
Yeah.
We all do them proper beat up and rusty and.
They come in the scrapyard, didn't it? Really, you wouldn't even have them in the scrapyard how they're done, but they're interesting to look at. Because I was about to make the point of as armour wise, and I think that's probably why the armour guys took to weathering. Because if you've got a Panzer Grey,
yes, yeah, I
an
know
olive drab,
or
a Russian green,
yeah,
whatever, they're all single colours, and like you've always said, it'll be a brick. And that's the trouble where I think with modern aircraft, they're all grey. It's great when they were camoed, you can split it up, and that's I think why a lot of people go for the Russian stuff, because they have interesting schemes, or the Eastern European stuff have interesting schemes, or like you were saying, they've got proper boneyards where stuff sat for 40 years and it's faded and it's busted and it's rusty and it's interesting to look at. I mean, go back to Jamie's Wessex. That's sat on a runway somewhere, isn't it, where it's got the inspiration, or it was. Been there however many years, so it has,
You're rotting
and
away.
to be fair, if that was a Russian aircraft, it could still be a line aircraft, couldn't it, looking that bad?
Probably. It probably could. But I mean, we've been to the Aero Museum in Donny, haven't we?
Yeah.
And they've got some stuff that's really inspirational for modelers, because it's sat outside, it's weathered, it's in bits, and it's. I mean, I've got photos of it. I think you have as well, haven't you? And I think probably Nathan and whatever one we've been. And Newark's the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Newark's got stuff as well, and all their museums have. And I think that's where your inspiration comes from. It's not. I think it's suspending the reality.
Yes.
It's art over practicality, or whatever.
Yeah, art over form, isn't it? But
and
that like say, summing up on this one, it is that thing though. It's the great thing about this hobby is that it's your imagination, your model, your techniques, and you're right. No one can tell you it's wrong. I know you're always going to get the idiots to turn around and say, "Oh, it's the wrong colour green," or "It's like, did you realise they changed that grey on the 12th of that month?" At the end of the day, who cares? If you've done it and you're happy with it, and you've got that real sense of achievement to it, then never let anybody tell you it's wrong. That's it. It's to say, I get quite a lot of flack pretty much over every model I do, where people are like, "Oh, you do realise it never had that," or "It's like this," and it's like, do I look like I care? Because I don't, because I've done it because I enjoy it and I like the look of it. And I've enjoyed the build process as well. And many, many times, it's one of the, the things I often say about, it's really easy to go over top with weathering because you enjoy it. It's like, oh, I'm going to add this little bit here and I'm going to add that there. And you step back and go, shit, it looks like it's out of a scrapyard now, but I've really enjoyed it and it's really, really nice, And I probably have gone over the top now. But if you've enjoyed it, what does it matter?
It's freeing.
It is, absolutely.
And it's good for the mind, I think.
And because it's art, you can do what you like.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, do it because, like I said, I think, again, we'll discuss on a different show, but it is a bit of escapism. It's something we enjoy doing. And we were saying on yesterday's show, the angry modeler. What's the point of being angry about stuff?
Why do people get angry about things?
It's a hobby, and it's not a job.
No.
It's a hobby, and if you don't enjoy your hobby, then go and find something you do enjoy doing that don't make you so angry. And
But then that's just the downside of the internet and social media, isn't it? There's just so many people out there quick to judge.
Yeah, it's probably always been there. It's just now exaggerated because of social media and all that lot. But again, there's good sides to it as well with social media. I think, there's always good and bad sides. And I do think you know, there's good people out there. It's not just all the angry ones, is it?
There's some really good people out there. Don't get me wrong. You know, as you say, I know I'm quite vocal about it and all the rest of it, but they pick on me, I'll pick on them. It's how it works these days. It's my new hobby. But, you know, it's one of those things, though. I think that people should not get disheartened if you feel that your weathering skills aren't up to it. It doesn't matter. You know, you're enjoying it. What I would say is try techniques, though. Have a go with them. Don't do it on your best kit that you're working on. Have a buster, you know, play with a different thing. Just see how you get on with it, you know. And the other thing as well is don't go out and buy hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of the latest thing. Because the chances are it's thinned oils anyway.
At the end of the day, every single kit you build, are you going to take it to a model show? Are you going to enter into the competition?
Yes.
No, they're just going to sit on your shelf, aren't they?
Yeah.
Think of it from our point of view as well. If you're going to enter it in a group build or SIG, no one's going to judge you. Do what you like. It's a nice thing too. It's liberating.
Hey, do what you like as long as in the rules of.
Yeah. Don't push the rules, otherwise you'll get shouted at.
Pop a build thread.
Yeah, pop a build thread. Yeah.
Self gratification.
Yeah, that's another story. Blind doing that, my mum used to say.
Yeah.
It will fall off.
I've said it. Hey, you build for yourself, don't build for anybody else.
Definitely, yes.
If somebody else likes it, good, happy days. If they don't, then there's other things they can look at.
And like I've always said, nobody's ever happy with their own work. I don't know anybody, and I know a lot of full-time professional model makers who do commissions only and all the rest of it, and I can guarantee not a single one of them will be 100% happy with their model. And that's a commission one going out as well. You know, there's always something they would have changed. There's always something they'll know it's not 100%. Don't get me wrong, they'll fix most of them, but there will be somewhere on the model they think, well, look, it's not worth the hassle because it's going to destroy it and make it worse than it could probably be. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to walk away from it because it's fine. It's no problem at all. And that goes for most things in life. You know, we're not robots.
If everyone built perfect models, it'd be pretty boring, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But nothing's perfect anyway, is it? Nothing's
perfect.
It's impossible to reach that level.
We are in nature. There's nothing perfect in nature, as they always say, isn't it? There's no straight line of perfection in nature, and that's the nice thing to it. You know, it's one of those things, I think, where you can go down a real rabbit hole and get really, really frustrated. You can get annoyed with yourself, and you know.
Well, this is again what we was on about yesterday, wasn't it? About finishing and not finishing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you're that kind of mindset where it's got to be perfect, you're going to struggle to finish stuff, aren't you? Let's be honest, because you're just going to beat yourself up every time you see the imperfections. But the actual satisfaction of when you've finished that kit, rather than put it on a shelf or back in a box, will far outweigh the little nitpicky things that will be wrong with it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree. Yeah, totally.
So...
Cool. Right. Should we do a few questions?
Yep.
What time is it?
It's 8:30.
Is it really?
It is. See? Doesn't time fly? Okay. Nick says, thank you for all your comments. And thanks to Matt and Andy for getting the orders out. I really need to stop ordering so much. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You do.
You're doing absolutely fine. My question is regarding the Flory wash. I've heard you mentioned you can either wipe it off with a damp cloth or sand it off. Could you explain the differences and what you expect with each technique? Or maybe do a quick demo. Well, I don't have to because if you pop over to my B52 build, because you're currently working on a B52. Where is it? I've lost it. Was it that far back? It was. Look at that. Okay, so... down in here, like we said before, this is where I sand off your weathering. So if you sand it off, this is over a flat coat, and then sand the wash off, you can get this type of effect with it. So you just sand it off a little bit more, you leave some grubby, you leave it in the panel lines, so forth and so on as you work your way along. And that's literally how we go about sanding it. The only thing is, obviously, you want to use an old worn out medium sander, or preferably you want to use the weathering stick. On this one, to be honest, I use this guy because it's really old, and you just lightly work your way over And again, you can pick out centres of areas and then just buff it with the towel afterwards, with a paper towel, just to sort of smudge it all around and everything. And you'll notice when you're sanding it, it comes off like pigment. You can use that pigment to rub it into areas and stuff like that as you're making it a way around. But that's just sanding it all off. Go off and see the video build and you can see all about it. And that's how we did these different panels. So obviously this is sanded more heavy in here and it's not sanded as heavy in here. So it just gives you that real mottled. And again, we were talking about different ways of doing it. Yeah, you could come along with oils and do all of this, or you could just use the wash and stick the wash over it and it's all done, you know, and that's it without it. So it's nice and clean. And then again, just going through with all the weathering on there. Nice, easy way of doing it, as you can see. So, you know, it's one of those ones. There's different ways of doing it, but sanding off the weathering, if you want to go for this grimy look, it's easier on aircraft because they're nice big flat areas, so they're easy to sand. If you were trying to get in amongst them everything, then I'd definitely use a damp cloth because you can get amongst all the bits and pieces. But doing it on here is very, very nice. And obviously you're sanding the decals as well, which sort of blends them in a little bit, and those types of things. So definitely that's the way I'll go about it, because here's yours down in here. And again, same thing. So you know, it's the same kit. You can do exactly the same bits and pieces on there. All right, yours is the newer version, for someone says it's not. So, but yes, nice colour scheme. It's grey and diarrhea. Right.
I think that's his camera.
Is that his camera?
I think so.
No, they did do it in that scheme, isn't it?
It's a funny colour though, isn't it?
Why doesn't it show FM under your name? I don't know, Nick. Why doesn't it say that? It's I don't know, because you've got Nick under your name. I think that's how it's done it. So maybe you've changed it and put it in there. I will look after it. Don't forget, EU members, they have a different one underneath it, just so the system can know the difference between you all. Lindsay says he's building the Viewfighter as a night fighter version. Was wondering how would you use the wash, it's a wash is today's, to be done a wee bit of panel line chipping. And a look, first attempt. Again, we got loads of videos on blacks and stuff, but one of the best ones would be would probably be that one. Oh, sorry, wrong button. There we go. So is obviously when I did all the black work on here. So this has got a bit of a weird stuff in amongst all of this. I was trying a new technique, and that's what we're saying about try new techniques. So this has actually got silver sprayed into the black. So it doesn't look metallic, but it breaks it all up a little bit. So we've used lots of different colours, but you can see this is literally just the grey wash in this. And because you're working it near black, you would think it would be really, really strong each way, but it's not. So you can just literally go through the motions of doing it with the black areas, with the greys, and the greys come through in there. But you know, I tried silver to sort of fade in black, and it sort of worked. I was quite happy with how that came out, really. So yes, that's a different way of doing it. But again, have a look at some of the video builds on there, because it will show them sort of in full of doing it. But as I say, I used it on the bottom of the 262, we did it on the bottom of the Halifax, obviously totally black aircraft, and obviously it works with dark blue as well. So like when we did the Hellcat, with those we use grey wash. So you can use grey wash if you think it's going to be too strong. And don't forget, if you put it on, it's really strong, you can overcoat it. So you can actually just put a little bit of a darker colour. So mix the colours together, so you can have a little bit of grey or white, add a little bit of dark dirt into it, or black or a darker colour, mix it up and then put it over the top. It will overcoat and sit down straight over the top. Phil has got a question, but it's not weathering, but it's fine. He's saying on here, hi gang, he's got this problem. So he's just saying he's used sprue goo for a while now and it's been working great, but he's got a problem as shown below. On the intakes, it seems to work perfectly on the right, that one there. It's got little pop marks into it. See it? Can you see that, King?
Yeah, I can see it.
To me, it looks like he's put it down too thick on that side. And when he's tried sanding it off, it's not been 100% cured.
Yeah.
It's like peeled it off a bit.
Yeah, there's two things that cause that, to be honest, that I'm aware of. One, as Andy quite rightly says, if you try and sand it before it's totally gone off, it can tear and the dust gets caught amongst it and you make this sort of, you know, they're basically like little holes in it. But it's where it was soft and it hadn't 100% gone off. Or the other way it could have been is that this seam line down in here, nice Jag by the way, the seam line down in here, if it had some filler dust into it and you put the sprue goo on top, it may be it's caused little pockets of dust and they're only tiny, as you can see in your little pot marks here. But the dust, obviously the sprue glue never got into, because it just, like an air pocket almost, so it never went in that actual area, and it has happened to me before like that. But to be honest, it's such a small job, you could probably get along with a dab of Mr. Surfacer over it, or a little bit of acrylic paint, just paint that over it and then just sand it off and it'll be gone, because they're only very, very small. But again, like Andy says, it's either wasn't 100% dry, or sometimes, as I say, if you've got filler dust, just make sure you blow it out, or get a brush in there to flick it out the way before you put styrene filler on top, because it can cause little tiny pockets of dust, if that makes sense. You would think it would eat it, but I think it acts like an air pocket, so it doesn't actually absorb the actual dust. So yes. Ever had that happen, gang?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Everyone's had that. David said, I once heard Phil mention that Flory sanding sticks can be used directly on top of decals to give them a weathered look. Which sanding stick would you recommend for this? What you want is the green and white one. Okay, so use the green. I know this one's not green and white anymore because it's metal. Yeah, green and white on there. Or, like we said before, if you've got like the blue one, an old one. You want an old worn down one, and just very lightly rub over it. What you actually do is you'll flatten the decal. So the carrier film on the decal and the printed surface will flatten down a little bit, and it helps to hide them and weather them off. And also it makes things stick to them.
It's one of the reasons why I have loads of different ones, because never throw your old ones away, because they still come in useful, even though you might not use it for its intended purpose originally, but they're still fantastic for doing, like you said,
Just on this aunt as well, don't put them in the dishwasher. I know it sounds stupid, but I've had a couple of people over the years do it, and I had somebody message me this week saying I thought they were waterproof and you can put them in water and they're fine. Yes, and then we got to the bottom of the reason they peeled apart like a banana is because they were in a 60-degree dishwasher. And clearly the glue's melted and it's peeled off as it's been stuck in his fork and knife tray, and it's done that. So, and I think that's literally the glue's gone off. But you can obviously submerge them in water, you can give them a wash and all the rest of it, leave it on the side, they'll be absolutely fine. The only one you cannot do that to is the green and white one, because the green and white one is a aluminium oxide. One, it will rust, secondly, it will fall apart, because it's not designed to be used wet. All the rest of them are wet and dry and can be washed. Mike says, hi guys, I've bitten the bullet for the Comrade group build, and I've decided to build the Zvezda 48 scale Mi-24. Nice. As Phil pointed out in his review, the fuselage is lacking detail. So my question is, do I go out and buy Rosie the Riveter, or buy some transfer based rivets and have them standing proud of the body? If I went with the transfer, do I run the risk of coming off when masking? That's a good point, actually. I've never masked over them. Probably very, very careful. You need John's technique for post-it notes for that one, definitely. What would you do before I say?
Rosie the Rivet.
If you can get hold of it, because aren't Rosie the Rivet
one, because they're no more, are they?
Is John Wojtek stopped selling them, has he?
Well, the chap who made them died, hasn't he?
Yeah, but everyone keeps saying about this, but no one's 100% sure on this, are they? Has anyone spoken to John yet and found out if he's not doing them anymore? Because they were still for sale on his site.
The guy that made them died, didn't he?
Well, I know a lot of people say these different bits and pieces that are apparently in the know, but I don't know. Perhaps he may have taken them on.
You can't get them in the UK.
Yeah, but somebody needs to speak. So our lot of go. When you're all off to the Nationals, the US Nationals, have a word with John, because John will be there, and ask him, is he going to be stopped doing Rosie the Riveter now? See what he comes back with.
And
if you are going, can you buy up all his scrapers and send them over to us? His not his scrapers, his scribing tools.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, Dirk says the last of the stock was sold to distributors in April. So anyway, Brett's going to go and speak to him. So there you go. Go and have a word with John. Say Phil from Flory Models. He knows me because we send stuff back and forth. But I haven't spoken to him for a while because I know he's a busy man. And he will be up to his neck. If he's doing the US Nationals, I know what he's like. So he'll be really, really busy this week. So, but speak to him and ask him if he could do Rosie the Riveter, and can PM Models buy them from him, please? Anyway, he also goes on to say, sorry.
I would rivet the Riveter.
Yes.
Personally.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't trust them raised decals.
No,
Yeah, I've used raised decals, to be honest. If you have a look at my A10 build, I raised riveted the back end of it, because obviously it's all raised rivets. But I wouldn't probably attempt to mask it, because I think you'd probably pull them off, because it is a decal, don't forget, as it goes on. So personally, I would rivet it. But you know what will happen? You'll do all of this, and then Trumpeter will release theirs, and theirs will look fantastic. Just saying.
Well, we'll see.
It probably won't, but it'll be sod's law, wouldn't it, if you just done it all. So yes, but personally, I would re-rivet it. If I was going to build one tomorrow, I'd re-rivet it. The other question is, he's done a very nice X15 in the white scheme. He was saying, it's just reckon that Phil's X15 build is an absolute gem, and one of the anyone wanting to improve their skills. There you go. How much do you need sent, Mike? I'll have to send him cash for this. Anyway, yours is looking very nice as well. He's doing the white scheme. I haven't seen anybody do the white scheme yet, so that's quite nice.
Looks like he had a similar problem to you in the back end of the canopy.
Yeah, because mine sat funny, wasn't it? So yeah. Yes, perhaps it's a
So
short
it's not the
pole.
right shape, is it?
Don't forget, Mike, you'll need the extension on the bottom if you've got the fuel tanks on. Because if it had the fuel tanks, it has the bottom extension that gets jettisoned on landing. I didn't know that till afterwards either, so I had to stick mine back on. I had to get it out of recycling. So yes, very nice, but very nice. I like the tank design as well. Cool.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Very, very nice. Gordon says, firstly, thanks for all your great work keeping me going every day. I've just had to gloss coat a model and choose using Mr. Colour GX100, which I thinned with self-leveling thinners for the first time. When I sprayed it, it came out very fine white frosty coating. Spraying at 20 psi through an Iwata Neo TR1. What have I gone wrong? I was able to quickly clean it off and replace it with Pledge.
Hey, drop your pressure for a start.
Yeah,
By
20 psi, you're drying that en route. Also, I will say GX100 is really thick. It's a really strong gloss, so you probably have to thin it a bit more as well. So I thin that stuff about 60 or 70%.
Yeah.
Because it's so thick. My airbrush would struggle to spray it, so a lower pressure, and I think that's probably what your clue was. 20 psi for that stuff, it's literally drying it as it's coming out. So by the time it reaches the surface of your model, it's giving you the frost effect, because it's literally drying en route. That's the problem with that one. So lower air pressure, closer to your model, and thin it.
Literally, it wants to be water.
Yes, it does need to be very thin.
Yeah, very thin.
The trick is, it's not to dust it on, not with a gloss.
Yeah, wet.
Yeah, wet
Got to get it
coats.
on wet.
Yes.
Look at my vid on the Jag.
Yes. Good one on that one.
Was that single pack GX? One of them, 1200 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy says, I'm looking forward to the next Venom. Just saying. Not quite a question, but I've received my Border Models 109. Cheers, PM team. And I have to say it's gorgeous despite the few things that we pointed out. I've noticed that areas to be I've noticed there appears to be a pattern with the extras. It seems to be the metal props go with the dead pilot. Harnesses, you do get harnesses for the standing people. Figures, and with the seated one you get additional decals, and with a figure to match some of the additions of the schemes that are on the instructions. So that's what
it does say on the box that the metal extras go with the figures.
Yeah, I think
I blame the review team for not pointing this out.
the one that gets the decals, it's the decals to use for the scheme that carries the rockets.
Yeah. Got you. He also says, did you notice it seems to go together in a similar way to the Trumpy 30-second one? I've never built a Trumpy one. Anyone built a Trumpy one? No, don't know what that one goes like.
To be honest, I think the Trumpy 109s, the later ones, are very nice in 30-second. I think you avoid the E and whatever, they're not great, but if you go to the G2 onwards, or they're quite nice in the Ks, they're nice kits.
Cool. Okay, Steve says, hi chaps, any news on the Millennium Falcon inquiry? I've got my Rishi Sunak dollar, or pound in our case, burning a hole in his pocket.
Need to
actually-
speak to the supplier
Hold
because he
on,
was way
hold on, hold on, mind your neck in a minute.
Oh, he's
I rang
been-
him today and got the answer machine.
Oh,
So
brilliant.
because I seen that question, I thought, oh, I'll ring him tonight. I'll ring him before he goes. And it rang and rang and went to answer machine. So I'll ring him tomorrow and I'll find out. And
Because I need to sort some bits out for Colin as well.
right.
Because he went away, didn't he, for a...
Yeah, and then we've been away, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll find out tomorrow. I'll ring said person up and see if he's got any left.
Darren's got the clamps, which we've spoken about loads of times. I don't know why Darren's on about them again. But anyway, put up, hi guys, found the clamps, might be interesting if anybody wants the blue ones that I use and all the rest of it. My point to this is, guys, don't forget, they used to be $5.99 a pair. Now they're a lot more expensive.
They're now £40 for one.
Yeah, it seems like it.
They look
I think
smaller
these are
as
somebody's
well.
done a rip-off 3D print job and stuck a bit of rubber on them and all the rest of it, 'cause they're not quite the same design as the other ones, but I can't believe they're so expensive. So I think someone's trying to cash in a bit there, because at that price, that's horrendous. They literally were $5 a pair, then they went up to $5.99 a pair before they disappeared.
I suppose if you can't get them, I mean, then it's
Yeah,
worth to you, isn't it? So if you can afford it, then
yeah,
yeah.
it is. Yeah,
It is.
so
Okay.
that's it.
But just amazes. Everyone gives us grief about the price of stuff, and then somebody's clearly cashing in at that point, and it's like, phew. Anyway, just saying.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand. It is. That's what people were saying about our finger, isn't it? When we was all about doing holders and stuff. Apparently in resin it's not a cost-effective way of doing it. So I might have found an injection moulding company to do it for us.
Yeah, it'd take too long to 3D print one.
Got it, and it's keep somewhere. It should be there like a little sweatshop going.
It should be keep.
I want that thing running 28 hours a day. Get on with it.
Well, hey, if somebody will pay £40 for a set of clamps,
Well,
if I
this is
pay
a good point,
45
actually.
for some,
Then they should pay 80
blue
quid
old-
for a paint holder.
Exactly.
Because ours will have a logo on it, so that makes a massive
Yeah.
difference in there.
It'll have a wonky logo on it,
Definitely.
or half printed.
If Flory on one side and PM on the other.
Yeah.
This is it. Anyway, a big thank you to everyone with the kind comment for the guys doing the reviews, because obviously the next one went up today with Nathan doing the one on the little Hurricane, which is quite a nice one as well. So big thank you to the guys for doing that this week. I've had a week of doing no reviews. That's it. If I've got to get back to it next week, I've got a pile down here. Better do John's, I suppose. He might want to build it one day. When you build
Have
it,
you
John?
ordered?
You're right. No rush
Hey.
for that.
Have you ordered them kits yet to
No,
review?
I haven't done it yet. I'm going to do it in the morning. To be honest, I've got a
Well,
shed load to review as it is.
No, wait, get the one with the blue mats because I'll have that off you.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, pinch me blue max.
Yeah, I want the medal.
Oh,
I
right.
did
Just
think I should
give
have
me like
left
Muttley, have his medal on.
I did think I should have left me book with you as well. You could have reviewed that with it at the same time, but never mind.
Yes, that's a nice book, that is. Have you had a look through it? Is it a nice book?
Yeah, it's typical Duke Hawkins, isn't it? They're always
Well,
good.
I lost all mine because somebody took them back again after you said I could have them. So I was like, cheers.
No,
I said, need them back now.
I didn't think you got it left to review. I thought we took it all back.
No,
with
no,
us.
no. I've got to do the, was it the Viewfort, the SU-35, and I've got the gorgeous Typhoon. The nice one, which will be my next one-day build after Saturday when I finish the other one.
I thought you'd already reviewed the Typhoon.
No, never
Which
had it, have I?
type is it?
Yeah, you have.
Have I? Don't think so.
Yeah,
Which
Sure.
type is it?
I thought I did the F-35. Did we
the
review that one?
Euro Typhoon.
Oh, he's not
Sure.
done that.
Yeah, are you sure?
I'm just going off to check because.
Because you're getting old and your memory's going.
All right. We were discussing this earlier, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
I think we'll all be joining Andy for a neurological exam.
Yes, we're all going to be in with him.
We are.
Hey,
And who are you again?
it's my Uncle Stanley.
I'll forget to go to the appointment.
Well,
No,
I
haven't.
I
I've
am
never
alright,
done
not
this.
getting with me.
Yeah. We'll all snuggle up, Andy.
Yeah.
That'll look interesting on the MRI. Yes, anyway, I will get that one done because it looks like, or I can't see it on the system that I've actually done a review of that one, so I'll get that one done as well. We'll say we've got some other kits coming in next week and bits and pieces, so we get that sorted. And I've got that other one, the Helldiver, which Andy was going to review because he was going to do a side by side.
Oh yeah, it was. Well, he got out of that one, didn't he?
That was the
Yeah, the Infinity Models one with your.
Yeah, the one you said you're going to build.
Yeah, that you never got around to doing.
That's for the Helldiver SIG.
SIG,
That's coming
yes.
up next year.
Helldiver.
The 132nd Helldiver SIG.
That's for next year's group build of I used to be with another company. Reeboks by another name.
Build.
We're going to have a group build about reboxing. But anyway, next part of the Vulcan will be up with you tomorrow. I've had to redo my intakes. I wasn't happy with my intakes, so I've re-sanded them and repainted them today just to make them all nice and seamless. Because again, you know that thing about we're talking about when you look at it going, it's not 100% right, but I'll probably get away with it. Yeah, so anyway, I've re-sanded them out today and redone those. So that technically is ready for paint now, so that's good. So that one's beat up. Anyway, next part of that's up with you tomorrow. Basically, it's all the wing sections and all of that. Let's say Truck is looking very much the part. He's done. So we are currently working on down in here is the gun system, which is more complicated than putting that together. So who knew? And you're always talking about that you get parts for the sake of it.
Well, that's what I've had.
Why mould it in one when you can do it in 10 parts?
That's
So-
it, that's what I've had with the truck. What
Yeah,
time is it?
same with the gun on there.
My watch, my clock's not working.
It's
Nearly 5
8
to.
minutes to.
So I was saying about Saturday morning.
Yes, I was just coming to that. Go on, you can do that.
Well, Saturday morning we'll be on from 10 o'clock till midday.
10 till 12.
Or till we've had enough.
Yes.
basically, or we've told we've got to finish.
Yes, told to get off. Stop.
So Saturday Club is up and running.
Yeah,
this
Saturday
week.
morning we'll be there. So I'm going to carry on with me lightning. So decals and things I'm thinking.
I'm going to do my figures actually. I might as well carry on with what I started. So I'm going to start the flesh work on my figures.
Nice.
I think.
Nice. You guys joining us or are you working?
No,
I'm working.
Oh. I'm not paying you overtime.
Voluntary on the Saturday.
Yeah, I'll be.
So what are you working on then, Andy?
I'm going to carry on with my tank thing.
Tank thing.
This thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm same as Phil. I'm building the guns for it now, and it's very overcomplicated.
And that's Tackham, isn't it?
So yeah, and it's amazed me how badly the seam lines are on this. Every single part has got seam lines that you need to take out.
To be honest, that's the trouble with these little parts, like these little gun deck for it. If Andy's is anything like this thing, it's a nightmare for cleanup. I know it's a little bit early trumpeter, this one, so this is what I'm doing here, but the actual sprue tab connection points are right where you don't need them. They're right in amongst little details, so I'm having to cut most of them out with a knife.
And this has got like a step, and the sprue tab's right where the step is.
Oh, great.
So
Even
you're
better.
sending the whole step off for you, like cutting it
Anyway.
like an L shape to try and.
You know I was on about angry modelers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you two better shut up because you're going down that road.
Do you know what? We have done the review of this one. They are quite right. You've just posted up saying you have. I didn't realise I have. Why is it not showing on my system? It is the same kit, but we had a limited edition one there. This one is no longer the limited edition one, clearly. So we had it, we came with the stand. As we see, when I've reviewed it, I don't have to worry about not looking at it. So you don't get the stand. No, you don't get a stand. Bugger. That's a pain. I was hoping it's going to be like the F-35. Could you have a word with our man and say, can I have one of the ones with the stand, please? We've been swizzed.
You just build it. Build it and make your own. What are you doing, John, on Saturday?
I think I will start that one.
Oh,
Are you starting it, are you? Oh, cool.
real.
Yeah, I'm going to do it's not going to be a video, it's going to be like a photo build review of it.
Nice.
So he's going to start with the figure and how to paint the figure, and then he'll
Yeah,
progress
okay, yeah.
past it.
Are you going to paint him dead? Or is he just resting?
He's resting his eyes.
To be honest, most of the skin colours I use, I'll get away with dead.
You would.
I'm donating that one to Matthew.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
I
Do you know what? If he didn't have his actual thing on, you know, his straps and his parachute. That's what they called, isn't it? Parachute.
Yeah.
Because he's got them on, isn't he?
Yeah.
I could have used that figure. I could have put him in the back of a lorry or something. You know, like he's knackered and you know, not dead.
I was going to say, because he's got a different head, isn't he? Can't you just put a different head on him?
Yeah, because it's 35th. I could change it for a Hornet head. Just one without a helmet on, just you know, just 1940s aircore. Yeah, I could do that. 35th. So I could do something with it and make him a bit more lively.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have it off you, John. It'd be a nice little figure, actually. It'd be good. So.
Cool. Yeah. Very good. Right. Okie dokie. Well, we might as well call it there then, guys. Don't forget, I'll be back with you tomorrow afternoon. It's just the quick live update thing, seeing what we've been up to this week and then everything else like that. As I say, there's no full review, any reviews tomorrow because we've done them all this week. But as I say, I'll put up the other one. It'll be up around about midday for you for the Vulcan as well. And then next part is all about weathering and everything else as well with the truck next week. As I say, tomorrow and everything, I'm going to try and get the gun done for this one. So that's fitted onto there. So that'll pretty much complete that build out of the way. And then next week, we're obviously into paint. So we'll be getting going obviously on the Vulcan with paint, and as that one's making its way, I'm going to be starting on the new bite size and tutorial videos and everything else. So I'm going to have a couple of months off from doing video builds to do those, but they'll come out as we do them anyway. So there'll be tons coming this way, so that's good. Cool. But say, if you do want to join us tomorrow, Saturday morning as well, we will be on 10 till 12, and it'd be lovely to have you along. So grab a coffee or a beer, whatever time it is in the world, or just perhaps you'd prefer a morning beer, I don't know. I've still got about 5 pints probably of cider that's been bubbling away outside. Do the bags explode if they get too hot? I haven't actually. I think I've cidered out after this week.
No, you better get that down before it turns to vinegar.
Yes, if not, I'll use it as a weed killer.
You need to put it in the fridge.
Yes, yeah, I would do if it'd fit.
No, why don't you take the bag out of the box and put it in the fridge?
Well, yes, I could do that admittedly. I might do that actually. We'll get that over. And we gained a pair of socks, and we also gained a sausage roll, a pasty someone left behind. I'd like to thank them. That was very nice yesterday. I ate that. The person who left the yogurts in the fridge as well, Smarties yogurts. That was quite. I had that this afternoon. And there was other bits and pieces left around the place as always.
I think the sausage roll might have been shells.
Is that shell? Because somebody had a pasty. No. It was 2 sausage rolls and a pasty.
It was Andrew Nathan.
Oh, was it? Well, it's
because they did tell me to tell you that they'd left him. You know, when we left the pub.
Yeah.
And said you can have them and eat them, and I forgot. I completely forgot. The socks are Leslie's.
So yeah, well, what I've got to do, that bit of paperwork, I'll send up to you with her socks. I'll put it in the post tomorrow.
All right, fair enough. Right, okay.
So yes, never mind. No, the dogs are here. The dogs are in the other room. The other half's off tonight, so they're in with her, keeping her happy. Otherwise, they would probably be here by now. Hey, you can see them on Saturday. We'll get them in for a cameo.
Hey, have they recovered?
Yes, just about. I tell you what, if you never, dogs normally we can take them out literally for a good sort of, we're out for 4 or 5 hours on a Sunday normally with the dogs, proper running across the moor or wherever we are with them. They didn't look as knackered then as they did on Sunday night, because Sunday night they were both absolutely sparko, snoring their head off because they were proper knackered out afterwards. So yes, you'd worn them totally out. All the kids did.
The kids did, yeah, let's be honest. The kids had worn them out, so and vice versa, I reckon.
Well, definitely. I must admit, I did sleep well as well, if I'm honest. Yeah. Rock and roll. I think I was in bed by 9:15 on Sunday.
Got a bowel pour off.
Yes. Anyway, right, okay then guys, 9 o'clock, we better call it right there. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Absolute pleasure as always. Remember, we've got the bits and pieces coming up with you tomorrow, and again, it'd be lovely to have you along on Saturday as well. So, cool, very good. Right, okay, I'll cue up your clappy thing, the clap, and we'll be out of here. So, say goodbye boys, we're out of here.
Bye.
See you later.